Today, we're talking about the man who literally invented history. I'm not kidding. His name was Herodotus, and his incredible book, The Histories, completely changed the way we think about our own past. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so try to imagine a world with no history books, no documentaries, no Wikipedia, nothing. How would you even know what happened before you were born? Well, for the ancient Greeks, the past wasn't about facts and figures. It was all about epic stories. Myths, legends, and poets like Homer telling tales where the Trojan War wasn't about politics, but about gods having a bad day.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what the world was like before history was even a thing. Then we'll dig into Herodotus' game-changing new method, Historia. We'll travel through the absolutely massive world he described, tackle the big question, was he a historian or a liar? And finally, we'll see why this guy from ancient Greece is, believe it or not, more important than ever.
Right, so let's really set the scene here. We're in the 5th century BC. If you wanted the scoop on the past, you didn't go to a library, you listened to poetry. You listened to Homer. And in that world, everything was explained by the gods. Why did that war break out? Oh, a god got angry. Why did that city fall? Simple. Fate. The focus was 100% on gods and legendary heroes, not regular people.
This slide really just nails the massive shift that Herodotus brought about. It's like he took the camera off of Mount Olympus and pointed it right at us, at humanity. All of a sudden, the story wasn't about the whims of gods. It was about the deeds of men. He was looking for cause and effect, not divine will. I mean, think about that for a second. For the first time, someone was suggesting that people's choices, their politics, and their ambitions were what really shaped the world. That's a huge revolutionary idea.
So how in the world did he do this? Well, he didn't just retell the old stories. He came up with a whole new method, a new way of seeing the world, and it was all built on one incredibly powerful idea. And that idea was Historia. Now, in ancient Greek, this word didn't mean history like we think of it. It meant inquiry. It meant investigation. See, Herodotus wasn't just a storyteller sitting in a room. He was an active investigator. The man traveled, he asked a ton of questions, he interviewed people, he gathered evidence. He was, for all intents and purposes, the world's very first investigative journalist.
And you don't just have to take my word for it. He spells out his whole mission statement right at the beginning of his book. He basically says, hey, I'm writing this down so we don't forget all the amazing things people have done. And get this, he meant both Greeks and non-Greeks, which was a pretty radical thought at the time. But then he adds the most important part. He wants to understand the causes of things, specifically the Great War between the Persian Empire and the Greeks.
And the scale of his investigation, it is just mind-blowing. Herodotus believed that to really understand the Persian Wars, he couldn't just talk about the wars. He had to understand the entire world as he knew it. So his book isn't just a military history. It's this incredible, sprawling travel guide to the ancient world's cultures, customs, and geography. He takes us on this grand tour to give us all the context. We get to learn about the fascinating religious customs in Egypt, the wild nomadic life of the Scythians, the legendary wealth of the Lydian kings, the inner workings of the Persian Empire, and of course, those fiercely independent Greek city-states. He documented the whole shebang, all to build this rich, detailed picture of the world before this epic clash of civilizations.
And to give you a feel for his style, check out this story he tells from Babylon. He reports on this very strange marriage market. Apparently, the most beautiful women were auctioned off to the richest men. But here's the twist. The money they made was then used to create dowries for the women who were considered less attractive so that they could get married too. It's a bizarre, fascinating little story, and it's a perfect example of his method. If he saw it or heard about it on his travels, it went in the book.
But, and this is a huge but, this very method of reporting everything he heard is what leads us to the big controversy around him. You see, for as long as people have been calling him the father of history, they've also been calling him something else, something a lot less complimentary.
So you have these two sides, right? The father of history camp points out that, hey, the guy traveled the world, he talked to eyewitnesses, he tried to compare different stories to find the truth. But then the father of lies camp chimes in and says, yeah, but what about the giant gold-digging ants? The thing is, he was a pioneer. There were no rules for this stuff. He was inventing the process as he went. So while he tried to get things right, he also felt his job was to record the stories people told him, whether they were solid facts or just wild folklore.
So with all that in mind, why do we still care? Why are we still talking about this guy 2,500 years later? Well, it's because that core idea, that spirit of inquiry, is still the absolute foundation of how we try to understand our world today.
Seriously, his legacy is everywhere. That whole idea of going to where a story is happening, interviewing sources, and reporting what you find, that's investigative journalism, and Herodotus was the prototype. The entire field of anthropology, studying and comparing different human cultures, that's straight out of his playbook. And the idea that you can't understand a big conflict without understanding the history and culture of everyone involved, that's basically the core of all modern geopolitics. All of these fields are built on his fundamental idea: ask questions about what people do and why they do it.
So in the end, Herodotus leaves us with this really powerful idea. History isn't just a list of dates and dead kings. It's an active investigation into why we do what we do. It puts the responsibility for what happens in the world squarely on our own shoulders. And that kind of leads to a final thought, doesn't it? If history is our inquiry, then what are the most important questions we should be asking about ourselves right now?
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.